Hey, Steve Saretsky here. I just want to put together a quick video. As usual, there's a blog post about this on my site, Van City Condo Guide. That's in the link below in the description. Basically just covering supply as 2016 came to an end. BC Housing and Status Canada both released their numbers in terms of housing starts, and as well in BC they actually released housing completions, basically when a new home registers new home warranty. So they've recorded all those numbers, so it's interesting to see. I mean, for the most part, usually over 2016 you get trends, so they'll show you the trends in terms of what housing starts are doing. But now that 2016 is over, we'll actually have obviously the final number. So I mean, as one would expect, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about obviously supply and demand, and we need to build more and more supply. Well, I agree with certain points, and I know I've talked about this before in previous videos, previous blogs. Yes, I do agree that supply is needed, but ultimately you cannot build your way out of a housing crisis. It has never been done before. When you have all this demand, and you have this psychology, this irrational behavior, this fear of missing out. Where people are willing to go and get into multiple offers in areas like Mission and Abbotsford and all these other areas. It doesn't matter how much you build, it's not going to curb what is really a short-term thing. Because obviously it can't go on forever. But that's kind of what happens with the supply. I mean, supply start to finish, I mean, it can be a 2 to 3 year thing. So, I mean, it's really not a short-term fix. I mean, obviously you know that, so it's hard to say, you can start building, adding all the supply in, say, 2015, 2016, but if the demand isn't there in 3 years, and when all that new supply comes on, it'll help you in the long term. This is why I like the supply. I mean, specifically in Vancouver, where you have these single detached homes making up a huge chunk of the land here that are $2, $3, $4 million. I mean, nobody with local incomes can really afford those unless you already have a foothold in the housing market. So I think in terms of long-term affordability, yes, more supply is needed, especially in areas like Vancouver. People want to be closer to the city. It's already really expensive here. So yes, long-term affordability, supply will definitely help. But again, I hold firm on this, that supply was not the issue in terms of why prices took off and went up 40% on average over the last 2 years. That has nothing to do with supply. In a lot of these areas, we already had a significant amount of supply. I've talked about it in Richmond condos. We had almost record high, I believe it was record high supply in the middle of 2015. Areas you go to South Surrey, condos and townhouses there. I mean, specifically the condo market, there was a lot of realtors a couple years ago turning down condo listings just because they were so hard to sell. There was so many condos. I mean, what happens in a lot of those areas is because they're building so many condos and townhouses, most people prefer brand new, and so any condo or townhouse that's say 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, that becomes a tough sell, because why would you pay almost the same price for a townhouse that's say 5 years old when you can go and buy one that's brand new? Maybe pick out your finishings and that sort of thing. So those were really tough sells, and obviously we saw those explode over the last year and a half. But and so now the numbers are in. Basically in BC. They hit a record for housing starts. That's when a project starts in 2016. They started 40,000 units in BC, and so obviously this housing boom was across BC. So they started 40,000 units. A typical average is around 27,000. That's what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years. So that's substantial. So we saw 40,000 units this year. Normally it's around 27,000. But even more so, in BC, I don't have the number for Metro Vancouver, but they are actually able to track the new home registration. So that's basically when the building goes to complete. That for 2016, let's see, that was 30% above the 5-year average. So in terms of new home completions, that was 30% above the 5-year average. I think for multifamily, so townhouses and condos, that was actually 32% above the 5-year average. So they're building the right kind of supply. They're building a ton of it. You could probably argue they're probably building too much of it. If you actually get into the Metro Vancouver numbers, Metro Vancouver, so they say that the population growth per year is expected to be around 30,000 people. Looking at Stats Can, they say the average household has 2.5 people in it. We actually built in Metro Vancouver, the housing starts this year were just over about 28,000 new developments started. So if you average it in, say 2.5 people live in each one, you're looking at about 70,000 homes that are being built. So definitely more than what we need in terms of population growth. But again, this is what happens in housing booms. I saw it in 08, 09. 2007, 2008, we were building above average, and then in 09, it just completely popped as the market, plopped. The housing starts just completely stopped. I mean, they were basically cut in half. But again, we did have a pretty big lead up into that one, and then there was a lot of these companies. I think Ani was one of them, where they basically had these fire sales on pre-sales. I think Mac Marketing came out, took over, and they basically opened up shop and put all these pre-sales, all this inventory that the developers had, and they just let this Mac Marketing company basically offload all of their inventory to complete liquidation, kind of what you'd see on, say, like a Boxing Day sale. So that's kind of what happened there. I mean, I think it's staggering in Metro Vancouver. I mean, like I said, it's 28,000 units or 28,000 housing starts. If your population growth is 30,000, you're essentially building a new home for every single person. So, I mean, it's substantial. And just to put that into even more context, the housing starts for 2016 in Metro Vancouver was 57% above the 10-year average. So again, that's 57 above the 10-year average. So yeah, I mean, that's what I got for you here today. You can see all these charts. Again, if you go check out the blog post, which is in the link below, you can see all those charts. I've referenced Stats Canada, BC Housing. So these aren't numbers that I just go ahead and make up. These are all numbers that are straight from the source. So, all right, hope that helped.